Hey everyone, Geophysicist Stefan Burns here. There's been so much insanity with our sun, the earth, our space environment over just the past 24 hours that honestly it's going to be difficult for me to report on everything in this video, though I will do my absolute best. First and foremost, we've had two 2.5 X-class solar flares from the sun, this sunspot group being 4419. They've both launched gigantic coronal mass ejections out into space directly towards Comet C 2025 R3 PANSTARRS. This is the sort of space weather that I've been forecasting now for probably about 6 to 8 weeks as a result of this flyby of this comet. And well, it's now going to be in this Earth center zone. And we have these sunspots here also quite active, 4420, 4423. So that is something to watch. You see right behind me here, this crazy fireball that flew across Europe today, the 24th of April. This one going straight down. Very, very bizarre. And this is now the 10th fireball sighting over Europe since March of this year, 2026, where there have been 80 or more reports submitted to the American Meteor Society. Typically, to get like 80 plus reports, it's a significant fireball. And there has been an anomalous surge of fireball activity since March began, and that is supported by the numbers. This isn't just more people with cameras or whatever. We've all had cell phones for a long time now. This is an anomalous surge. We're clearly in some new debris stream, and that has not yet come to a close. We've also had some pretty significant earthquake activity at 5.8 struck Crete in the Aegean Sea. This is Greece. There's also been more earthquake activity around Kamchatka, a swarm of some magnitude 5s, also north of New Zealand in the Kermadec Trench. That swarm is continuing. So we have a lot of different places right now which are rumbling and look like they could produce a bigger earthquake in the midst of all this solar activity. We also had a huge outbreak of tornadoes across Oklahoma, and one of them is estimated perhaps to even be an EF5 tornado, because some of these houses were literally just swept off their foundations. And we know via the research that there's a very strong statistical correlation between coronal hole high-speed stream impacts and tornado outbreaks in mid-latitude zones. Specifically also around this time of year when we're having this transition from winter to summer. In the northern hemisphere, it's spring, and well, you have more and more light radiation hitting the ionosphere at this moment in time. And right around equinox, the 21st of March, is when that transition is the fastest. But it's also very, very fast and potent in April. And that's when the Russell-McFerrin effect is very strong, where you have this greater connection between the solar wind and Earth's magnetic field plazosphere environment. That influences everything. These sort of coronal hole high-speed streams influence atmospheric gravity waves, and then those disturbances can propagate down to the troposphere, and then boom, you get increases in vorticity, and you get this chain reaction that can lead to these sort of tornado outbreaks. We also right now have an Earth, Venus, Uranus, Sedna, Pleiades alignment. This is a once every 11,400 year alignment, because Sedna has a 11,400 year orbit around the sun, highly elliptical, which means that right now it's close to its perihelion, its closest approach. As furthest, it goes 1,000 astronomical units away. So this is very significant. It's happening right now. Of course, we have C 2025 R3 PANSTARRS, soon to be exactly in between the sun and the earth as these sunspots here continue to show activity. This one being the most active, but I think we're going to start seeing some bigger M-class and perhaps even X-class flares from these sunspots there. Just 7 days ago, our X-ray flux, EUV flux was super, super low. Basically, there was nothing happening. The moment this comet did its perihelion on April 19th, it got close to the sun, then we started to see a surge in solar flare activity. We also have a risk of a radiation storm in the days ahead. As a result of this, NOAA is forecasting that there will be a geomagnetic storm starting around the 26th of April as a result of some of this space weather that we're having. There's also this coronal hole high-speed stream impact, and in general, the solar wind's about to get very, very turbulent, so keep that in mind. And also today, the World Meteorological Organization has come out and said that the possibility of an El Nino is very likely this year, starting around the middle of this year, and that the chances are that's actually quite a strong El Nino. Some weather forecasters are even speculating that may be a super El Nino. So that is a longer term influence that we have going forward. But in general, right now it's super, super active. Let's get right into it. Here's our sun, and we see two different X-class flares. These are both 2.5 X-class flares, and we see the coronal shock waves that were created by those, showing that they are very, very powerful. Here we have a coronal hole. It's not along the equator, so it's not transequatorial. It is fairly small, but we may get hit by that high-speed stream. Starting in about 24 hours or less. We have another coronal hole over there. We see more sunspots rotating, quite a bit of activity over here too. But I really wanted to show you these shock waves from these two 2.5 X-class flares that we've had. We can look at the coronal mass ejections here by looking at our 304 angstrom view of the sun, and we also see some of the coronal mass ejections launched by some other M-class flares that occurred yesterday. So there's been a lot of activity. It's not just the 2.5 X-class flares, there's also been M flares and more, some sympathetic. In general, the sun is very, very active right now. It's almost like it's angry because this comet is getting close. We'll look at that chronograph imagery next. But giant coronal mass ejections launching out tons of plasma. Keep in mind, again, C2025 R3 PANSTARRS is flying like this around. And there's the first X-class flare right there. And we'll see the second one about 6 hours later. And that's another equally big coronal mass ejection that launched off. I think actually quite a bit bigger right there. So very significant stuff. Here we see C2025 R3 PANSTARRS appear in our C3 chronograph. And so you can just see these coronal mass ejections launching out. Tell me that's not directly towards that comet, okay? This is exactly the sort of solar activity that we've been forecasting now for about 6 to 8 weeks. I'll put some clips at the end of this video from those forecasts I made, so you can just watch the recap at the end if you want. It won't be that long, but we see this comet coming in right here. And this plasma tail, if you look at it from this perspective, it looks like it's going out that way. It's actually going right towards Earth because the plasma tail stretches out directly behind the comet in that sun-comet alignment. So we can see that here with our HI2 imagery from stereo ahead. Here is the Earth right there. And the imagery gets degraded for the past couple days because of the transmission link and everything. But we see good imagery of the comet and its tail going up to the 21st of April. And look how far that stretches out. So this distance from the sun to the Earth is about 150 million kilometers. This tail is stretching out probably at least that distance. And it's about to sweep by. So you see at the very end here, right? It's just about to get into alignment. The tail's staying slightly deflected upwards, you could say. And so I bet in the next 24 hours, that plasma tail is going to hit us. A bunch of unknowns as it relates to how that's going to affect us. In terms of it triggering, let's say, some sort of big geomagnetic storm, I don't think that's likely. But perhaps there are some unusual effects that we really don't know. And there is some history about the effects of Earth going into the tail of a comet and there being kind of bad things that happen. So I don't know, but I'm not overly concerned about it, but it's definitely another factor that's added into all of this that I don't think we should just immediately dismiss. So we have R3 PANSTARRS right there going nuts. And let's look at our X-ray flux for the past 7 days because this shows us this story that's unfolding and it's really active right now. April 19th was when we had C2025 R3 PANSTARRS. This comet performed its perihelion, its closest approach to the sun, just off to the side. Okay, look at our X-ray flux. It's in this middle B-class zone, which is very low. We're no longer in solar maximum. We're in the descending phase of solar maximum. Does not mean that we don't get activity. It just means that overall activity is decreasing in general until you get to solar minimum. But as you can see, after that perihelion, that comet very close to the sun, still very close to the sun, we started to get sunspot growth, we started to see activity, and look how fast it ramped up. And these two 2.5 X-class flares, again, in the direction of that comet. We just had another, I think it's like a 1.3 or 1.7 M-class flare right there. That's from a sunspot which will soon be facing Earth. We have some enhanced solar wind and some partial solar storms already launched our way. So get ready for that. We can look at the space weather model that NOAA has released. We see that there is a big coronal mass ejection here that launched off. That's going to hit us, and then they show one of the coronal mass ejections from the first X-class flare going off this direction, and that shows a partial impact as well. So there's that first one, and then we see the second one. We see the coronal hole high-speed stream right there, that co-rotating interaction region. I think this is going to, in general, it's already underestimating what we have coming in. There's that plasma tail from the comet. They show impact starting around the 26th right here, universal time. Not that big of an impact according to this model. First run, again, there's more stuff already that needs to be added into this. And the 25th, 26th is specifically when we have that perfect Sun, Comet, Earth alignment. So they are showing, NOAA is showing something expected around the 26th. I'm going to add like a +2 to this. I think it's going to be much more than that. They're forecasting G1 to G2 levels. I think we probably have a G3 storm. I think the solar wind's actually going to be quite a bit stronger than people think. I would not be surprised if we see the solar wind strength to be, let's say, like 40 nanotesla or greater, the magnetic field, because I think the plasma coming off of this comet is going to really compress into unique structures that then sweep by the Earth, and it's going to take most space weather forecasters by surprise. We'll see. This is a forecast, so could be wrong. I think that's more likely though than not. So that is the latest forecast from NOAA, and we can also here look at our real-time solar wind to get a sense of where we are right now. So we see that just about a week ago, we had this coronal hole high-speed stream impact. We see the magnetic field right there, it enhanced, also went negative. We see our KP index down below. So we had two periods of G2 storming, that's moderate geomagnetic storming right here and right there. This being specifically on the 18th and 19th of April, then even charged back up to a G1 storm there, the 21st. And we see now that conditions are quiet. We're finally out of this high-speed stream here because the velocity now is only about 360 kilometers per second. It's spiked all the way up to about 550, which is pretty fast, but sometimes these high-speed streams go up to 700, 800 kilometers per second. Typically, that would be the maximum though. So it was a moderate high-speed stream, but it was big. It lasted a long time, and there is a really rich history of coronal hole high-speed stream impacts and tornado outbreaks. And the statistical correlations on this are rock solid. And now there are some researchers who are starting to look into this. They have published papers on this. I'll link those in the video description. But the research in general states that when you have these sort of co-rotating interaction regions and the coronal hole high-speed streams, there's all these acronyms, whatever. When you have this sort of space weather sweep by the Earth, it's able to effectively not just influence the magnetosphere, but also deeper down into the Earth energy onion, as I call it. So basically into the atmosphere. And it triggers atmospheric gravity waves. These can propagate downwards, and it can also trigger instabilities in the kind of tropospheric, stratospheric system. So as a result of that, you get more vorticity, the actual swirling and mixing and all that spinning in the atmosphere in the days following a coronal hole high-speed stream impact. It's about like a 2 to 3 day after effect, which is, guess what, right where we are. And we just saw some gigantic tornadoes come down in Oklahoma, creating a lot of damage. So let's check it out. So we have some images coming in this morning now after this crazy tornado outbreak in Oklahoma, and we see that some of these houses were just completely swept off their foundations. Tremendous destruction, and this really is not good. So I think we're going to get some big estimates here of EF4, EF5 tornadoes coming down in Oklahoma. I mean, just look at this. This is not a fun story right here. We can see some more imagery here from someone else. I'll link these in the video description if you want to check them out yourself. But this is really, really not good stuff right here. And here we can see one of these tornadoes in action. I mean, an absolute monster. This is near an Air Force base, I believe. And there was also sightings of twin tornadoes coming down as part of this outbreak. So really just incredible destruction that just occurred in the past 24 hours across parts of Oklahoma. I don't know how many people have been injured or killed as a result of this. I really hope it's none. But this came as some surprise to some people. They've been laying off people from NOAA, and so our weather forecasting abilities have gone down at like the government level, etc. And then also in general, weather forecasters, they don't take into account space weather, and in fact, they think it's fake. There are these proposed community notes on this video I posted discussing the influence of high-speed streams and coronal holes on tornadoes, and basically they just they link Wikipedia on this, which everyone knows Wikipedia is trash. If you spend any time, if you know anything and you go to a Wikipedia page for that, you're like, this is awful. There's brigades on Wikipedia. Meanwhile, we have all this research here that shows a connection between our space weather and weather environment, specifically for tornadoes. The Wilcox effects, that's very well studied, that came out in like 1974. So I'll link those videos, those research papers in the video description. But some terrible news out of Oklahoma as a result of these tornadoes, and hopefully that's it. But we are going to have that coronal hole come back for another rotation, almost certainly. So we're going to probably keep seeing this sort of activity going forward. And you can see just how fast that this can develop. Here we see the outbreaks of these tornado cells with our satellite imagery. So basically you can have like a normal thunderstorm, but then if you start to get that strong convection, now you can get a tornado. So that's really the thing that we're watching out for is, okay, is there a chance for strong weather? And is there going to be a sudden increase in vorticity? What factors are influencing that? Well, these space weather factors influence that. Whether you want to believe it or not, for mid-latitude locations, that's what the research shows. So very likely we're going to have a lot of this sort of weather going into the rest of the year, because in addition to these coronal holes that have been on the sun, and this solar cycle in general has been fairly anomalous in terms of how many large coronal holes there have been, we also very likely are going into a strong El Nino, if not even a super El Nino. So we can see that this was just put out by the World Meteorological Organization. Likelihood increases of El Nino this year expected to develop mid-2026, impacting global temperatures and rainfall patterns. And actually, you know, it's probably going to be a strong El Nino. So their climate models are now strongly aligned with that possibility. And models indicate that this may be a strong event. So some people are even calling this a super El Nino that's going to form. And I think that's probably more likely, just because from everything that I've seen over the years, and I've researched and more, we see that Earth is electrifying. It's called, you know, I call this Earth electrification. Earth is becoming more and more energized as a result of everything that's happening. This is our own influence over the planet anthropogenically. This is also the influence of the sun over the planet, our space environment, and more. So yeah, super El Nino is not a term that the World Meteorological Organization uses. It's not part of the standardized operational classifications, whatever. Sometimes we need terms to describe what's actually happening, because as you can see, there is this gatekeeping that exists with official organizations and also people that just simply don't know what they don't know, and they want to keep it that way. And therefore, you know, they'll discount or downplay things that are actually happening. Unfortunately, but that's the case. Now looking at earthquake activity, we've had just in the past few hours, we've seen 3 magnitude 5 earthquakes here pop off just off the coast of Kamchatka. This is a 5.1, 5.4, 5.3. So it's not 10 of these, but 3 of them, it's maybe we have like a magnitude 6 coming up for this location in the immediate future. We did just have a magnitude 5.8 strike the island of Crete, and here you do see a swarm. This is the 5.8 right there at a depth of 12.8 kilometers. And then we see 5.0 aftershock, 4.7 aftershock, 4 other magnitude 4 plus aftershocks. So this would be a location in the next few days for there to be a mid magnitude 6, even perhaps up to magnitude 7. But I'd say probably around 6.5. If this is a foreshock sequence, we could have that. This aftershock sequence here isn't the most anomalous in terms of it suggesting that this is all a foreshock, but it's also not totally normal because this is a bit more aftershocks than you expect at higher magnitudes than you would expect. So potentially a magnitude 6 or greater, but probably magnitude 6.5 to 7 earthquake coming to the island of Crete. In this forecast I'm just laying out right now, probably extending out for a week. The space weather isn't really helping it, I would say. Another location that we've been watching that has just remained at the levels that we've been tracking is here in the Kermadec Trench. We see that there was a new magnitude 5.4 that struck. And if we go to our 7-day view, I think that'll show, I guess our 30-day view here, that will show these earthquakes have been popping off, but slightly to the north actually. So here we see all the earthquakes that have been popping off in the Kermadec Trench, and magnitude 6 being the highest. So still more activity there. We'll see if something bigger happens there. That could be it, but the fact that you have this 6.0, 5.9, 5.7 just to the north, it's indicating that perhaps something bigger is coming. And as you will recall, as I released in yesterday's video, we had a magnitude 4.0 hit the new Madrid fault system here in Missouri. That has the potential for magnitude 7.5 earthquakes and also a clustering of those magnitudes within a few months. That's at least what happened in 1811, 1812. We have had a ton of activity here in Silver Springs, Nevada, 5.7, 4.8, 4.7. So that's a bit bizarre, but right now it's still, I would say, more normal than less normal, but that's definitely been a big area of release. And let's not forget, of course, Japan, where we've had the biggest earthquake thus far in the past month, magnitude 7.4. Also a 6.5 that occurred before that, don't forget. So there's been more activity than just this 7.4 recently. And then we go back to November, December 2025, and we had tons of activity as I've described. But that megaquake issuance is still in effect. The Japanese are very worried about it. They are looking at specific zones here in the subduction zone that indicate that there hasn't been a big movement in decades. And so a lot of people are very worried about Japan right now. And if we look at our 2 X-class solar flares that we had and the DRAP models, this is effectively the light flux hitting the Earth 8 minutes after the flare. The explosion on the sun, we see where they hit. This is the first one. It struck right there in the Western Pacific. So we see Japan is up there. And if we go over to the next one, we see that the next one struck over the Middle East, but we see that Japan is still there on the daylight side, though it is sunset at this point in time for Japan. And I mention this specifically for Japan because there is this interesting connection between solar flares and earthquakes around Japan. There's just, in the 21st century, this 21st century, there's a lot of examples that you can pull up of big solar flares corresponding pretty much perfectly with big earthquakes in Japan. And that occurred back in March 2011 before the magnitude 9.1 Great Tohoku earthquake. We saw this in 2025, and there's other examples. So when you start to get these big X flares and you start to see that light radiation ionizing the part of the Earth that Japan is on, I pay attention. Other people may not pay attention. I pay attention. So I think that's important to point out. We can also look at this fireball that came down over Europe today. So this was a significant event, as you can see, and really strange, coming straight down and not just kind of flashing in light for a second, but coming in bright from the beginning and staying illuminated for a long time. Now the vertical light beaming that you see there is likely as a result of the camera and the lens flare on that. But that is very significant, I would say. And just one of now 10 reports that Europe has seen for greater than 80 events over the past 55 days or so since March began. So there has been a whole bunch of these fireball sightings in Europe. Of course, also across other parts of the world, but North America, Europe have the most reports because they have the best reporting. But here we see this video also there on my X account, but I have all the reports linked from AMS from the beginning of March, and there's 10 of them. And so we see 92 reports, 3,230 reports, 145, 237, 86, 169. So huge numbers. This most recent one there at 265, and then there's some others that I haven't really reported on. This one there, 19th of April, 803 reports. These are all from Europe. So crazy activity still with these fireballs. It seems that we're in a novel debris stream at this moment in time, and the risk with that, therefore, is that there are larger meteorites that are in this debris stream which could interact with us, and if you get a Tunguska over a city, the city is gone. That's how that works. So, and that's not that big of a thing. I mean, that's Tunguska, I think, was 50 meters across, right? It's not like it's a kilometer across or anything. There's a whole bunch of Tunguskas floating around out there. And it just takes one to hit near a city and it's gone. It's totally leveled. So we need to be very mindful of our space environment. And right now, observationally, it's throwing up red flags like crazy. So that's also something to be mindful of. Now, as I've been reporting on, there's been some critical planetary geometry that was in effect really from the 17th of April to 23rd. This sort of planetary geometry is often linked to the creation of magnetic vortices, aka sunspots. And then when you get, let's say, a comet flying through right after that critical time period, like what's happening right now, that's when you get those sort of solar flares. I've been reporting and forecasting this now for more than a month, more like 6 weeks, 8 weeks. Okay, anyways, we've been talking about the different alignments. There is another alignment that is more active today than let's say the Earth, Mercury, Mars, Saturn alignment. And this is Earth, Venus, Uranus. Here we see the Pleiades right there, but also out beyond Uranus is the dwarf planet, trans-Neptunian dwarf planet Sedna, which is about 1,000 kilometers across. So it's not tiny, it's not an asteroid. This is big, it's a dwarf planet. It's very close to its perihelion, which is 2076, about 76 astronomical units, if I remember correctly. And it has a 11,400 year orbit. So normally it's 1,000 astronomical units out at its furthest. It's aphelion, perihelion, 76 kilometers. So super skewed in terms of how close and how far away it can get. It's very close right now, and that's also perfectly in line with this. And one other thing to note is that I discussed this a little bit back then, but I didn't discuss it that much. Back in July of 2025, we had Uranus start to get close to Sedna, and I was speculating that because Sedna is from so far out normally, and because this is a very historic perihelion transits going through in the 21st century, Uranus being this planet that's connected to sudden change and disruption and also earthquake activity, and Sedna being connected to the deep oceans, I was speculating that once Uranus crossed into that 1 degree orb range with Sedna, we could see some big seismicity. And this was like July 2025. Guess what? We had that magnitude 8.8 megaquake. Now we have Uranus once again engaging with Sedna with a 1 degree orb. Last year, it didn't fully conjunct Sedna because then it turned retrograde and it moved back, whatever. This year, it's going to sweep over and conjunct Sedna perfectly and then continue moving on. So we are back in that engagement range. Right now, we actually have a perfect alignment, but coming up in June and July is when that that Sedna-Uranus alignment geocentrically really goes exact. And so I wouldn't be surprised if you see more big size missing. And there's no historic record that we can look at for this because, again, Sedna goes out 1,000 astronomical units, and it takes Uranus 84 years to orbit. So it's been a long time since Sedna was close and Uranus did this sort of conjunction with her. So just keep that in mind. I wanted to mention that. Last time I was less confident in talking about it because we didn't really have an example and it was just a speculation of mine. We got the data now, baby. Megaquake, magnitude 8.8, Kamchatka, last year, July. So that's something to be mindful of. We're looking at Japan. A lot of people are really worried about Japan, especially the Japanese. So that's also something that we have coming up in addition to this potential super El Nino. But definitely, I think a strong El Nino, potentially a super El Nino. So right now, it's really, really crazy. Hopefully things cool down. But in general, I think this year is going to continue to be very, very active. Now, also a reminder that if you want to stay up to date with all this yourself in between my videos, I have a webpage dedicated to delivering this information to you. This is at my website, earthevolution.com/energy-analytics. It's linked in every single video description that I have. Here we see Schumann resonances, we see our global seismic activity level, we see our real-time radiation belt forecast, our aurora prediction model, and also our imagery of the sun via Solar Dynamics Observatory. We even have here the same solar system scope model that I use of the solar system that you can play with in the browser directly. So this is available, free to use. It's just a data feed that I've aggregated together. And I also want to remind you that right now we are running a promotion on the website. This is where I sell some channel merchandise and also some all organic herbal tea blends and also coffee. My dad and I make and mix this ourselves. We ship it out for everybody. Something I've been doing for a long time now, and a lot of you love the products already. That's awesome. Thank you all so much. Right now we have everything in stock. And if you pick up a spirituality starter pack, which you can see right here, you have the chance of getting a free sample of one of the other tea blends until they run out. We have like, I don't know, probably 20 of them left, maybe a little bit less. It's like a 50% chance that you'll get one. I'm telling my dad to put like one in every other or so. And this spirituality starter pack is our spirituality along with a super optical clarity quartz crystal and a 4-inch white sage smudge stick. So by bundling them together, I'm offering some discounts for everybody as a result. And right now you have a pretty good chance of getting a sample pack from one of our other tea blends. It could be in the range of 2 to 3 ounces or so. It's like leftover from when we're done mixing. So electricity, fruit tea, vitality, festivity, like tranquil, all the different options are there. You have a pretty good chance of getting one. So definitely check out the website. If you've been interested in picking something up, now's the time to do so. And it's especially helpful, just as a final call out, for when we have these sort of periods of intense solar activity and space weather. If you are a coffee drinker, you should probably pick up some herb coffee to have this on hand. This is 50% coffee, and it's single origin, shade grown, organic Peruvian coffee. So it's like the best of the best, but it's also chicory root, dandelion root, lion's mane mushroom. So it's half calf. So you're not gonna get that huge cortisol spike like you would from normal coffee, especially if you drink a lot. It's reduced, but you still are getting a little bit of caffeine, a little bit of fun, zip pop, but it tastes really good and it's better for you, especially for your gut, your microbiome, because of the roasted chicory root, the roasted dandelion root, and the lion's mane mushroom is fantastic for your brain, your memory, your focus, for enhancing neuroplasticity, for helping you learn things. So this stuff is awesome, and that is available on the website. And if you do pick this up, you may see it actually update to a 12-ounce size, because right now we're transitioning from 8 ounces to 12 ounces. So just FYI on that. But all this is available at the website, earthevolution.com/store. Now, before we close out, I would just like to play for you a couple clips from a video I released quite some time ago on my Clips channel describing what could happen with this close passage of R3 PANSTARRS in between the sun and the Earth. So here we go. Hey everyone, Geophysicist Stefan Burns here. We have a comet that's currently hurtling towards the inner solar system that will form a perfect Sun-Comet-Earth alignment, flying exactly in between the Sun and the Earth in late April, shortly after its perihelion on April 19th. And the reason why I'm highlighting this comet is we often see enhanced space weather when we have these sort of comets that fly in close to the Sun and also in alignment with the Earth. There's some electromagnetic plasma connection that comets have with the Sun. We don't fully understand yet the dynamics of this, but we see observationally this happen time and time again, that if a comet gets close to the Sun and flies in between, we often get these significant solar flares and coronal mass ejections. And because the comet's in front of Earth, they often launch that direction and then we get hit. And then we have some significant space weather, geomagnetic storming, and well, there's other downstream effects from that, biologically, geophysically, and more. So this is a significant alignment to take into consideration as it relates to space weather for April. And this is all occurring during some significant planetary geometry too. Multiple alignments occurring right in that time frame. So just a couple days after these planetary energies converge and this perihelion of the comet occurs, we get this Sun, Comet, Earth alignment. We will see it in our chronograph, but then perhaps we get a boom shakalaka from the Sun, solar storm launches our way. It's certainly possible. This is a long range forecast. I think it's a much higher probability than normal, hence why I'm making this video. Just wanted to show you those receipts because I think it is important that we make an effort at long range forecasting, and if it's done accurately, then we should really all be aware of that, because we do have the ability to forecast space weather quite a ways out based off of things like planetary geometry and common sense things like if you have a giant plasma comet flying by the Sun, maybe it's going to provoke it with some intense activity. So we look at all these factors. I forecast things out as it makes sense. It's not just to freak people out. It's really, my goal is to understand what's happening with the Earth, with the Sun, with our space environment, how that affects us, and to share that all with you. I'm not always going to be right, but I do my best to have a good track record, because this stuff actually helps people. It fundamentally, if by the end of the 21st century, if you really take this forward, will save lives. So that's really one of the overall goals here that I'm building towards, that we can have a society that's a little bit more aware of things and a little bit safer as a result. So that is your update for today. I've been your host, Stefan Burns. Thank you all so much for watching. Please smash that thumbs up button to help the channel grow. If you'd like to stay up to date on everything that's happening with the Earth energetically, our Sun, space weather, planets, comets, boom shakalaka, I got you. Wishing you all well. Have a great day. Hope for the best for everybody. Things are really wild right now. There's no guarantees, but really hope and pray for the best. I think everything will be fine in general. I'm not calling for the end of the world or anything, but right now is one of these classic periods where we have this convergence of factors and things get really intense. So just, yeah, that's happening right now, and that's going to continue very likely for the next few days. So yeah, wishing you well, have a great day, and see you all in the next video.